Hello, and welcome to the Career Compass program, which includes online learning sessions, podcasts, videos, webinars, white papers, and whiteboard videos, all specifically designed for NAVFAC. Please check the Career Compass Resource Center or CCRC often for updates and new content to support your learning. This content will assist with learning and development within the 20 non-technical competencies outlined in the Workforce Development Strategy. Today's topic is the role of bias in critical thinking in support of the problem-solving competency. Throughout this video, you will see a paper-pencil icon on some slides indicating a workbook activity. When you see this icon on the top left corner, this means I'll be asking you to write something in your workbook or to refer to your workbook. If possible, download the workbook from the CCRC before continuing with this course. However, if you are not able to, no worries. Just use any piece of paper and write your thoughts down on that. You can always transfer that to the workbook later. The objective of this video is to understand how to apply the skills that make up critical thinking and to recognize the impact of bias on critical thinking. In this video, we will discuss 1. The components of critical thinking. 2. Understanding bias. 3. The ladder of inference. And 4. Confirmation bias. If you have downloaded the workbook available for this video, please open it and answer the following 2 questions. What is critical thinking? And when is critical thinking important? Pause the video and resume when you are ready. According to the Foundation for Critical Thinking, an education nonprofit supporting the cultivation of fair-minded critical thinking is the intellectually disciplined process of actively and skillfully conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and/or evaluating information gathered from or generated by observation, experience, reflection, reasoning, or communication as a guide to belief and action. The 4 key elements of critical thinking are: first, it is an active process that requires reasoning, rejecting passive acceptance of information. When presented with a new idea or process, a critical thinker needs to actively reason with it to make sure that it works or makes sense. Second, it is consistently challenging or questioning ideas and assumptions. It is testing and looking to understand how everything fits into the whole picture. This is also not a one-and-done process. Critical thinkers are constantly challenging new and old thoughts alike to ensure that they are still valid and serving as a reliable base to work from. The third element is having a growth mindset that is open to being wrong, because learning is more important than being right. Critical thinkers understand that the world changes and that we are constantly learning new things. Ideas that were previously thought to be correct may no longer be valid. This is not some sort of personal failure. It is all about learning and moving forward. Lastly, critical thinking requires self-awareness, taking an honest assessment of your own personal strengths and weaknesses, as well as your preferences, also known as biases, and their potential impact on your decision-making process. It is realizing that we all have our own biases and that they do shape how we make decisions. Critical thinking engages our biases to see if they are still serving us or holding us back from seeing the fuller picture. Let's do an experiment where we engage in critical thinking in answering a question with a little research. We are going to do a critical thinking experiment. In a moment, you are going to do some quick Google research to answer the question, is drinking coffee good for us? Now, most of us know if we like coffee or not, but what we want to research is whether it's good for us. To gather your data to answer this question, please pause this video and use Google to search the following: reasons I should drink coffee. When you Google this, take a minute or two to read the first few items that come up in your search and make notes on the information that you find in your workbook or on a piece of paper. Once you have done this, repeat the process with the search, reasons I should not drink coffee. Again, read one or two items that come up in your search and take a couple of notes on what you find. Resume the video when you're ready. When I Google reasons I should drink coffee, at the top of my returns, I find the article from Healthline.com written by Chris Gunners, a nutrition researcher and writer. Healthline is an independent online health and wellness resource with fact-checked and expert-reviewed articles. Gunners lists 13 benefits for drinking coffee and suggests that if you did not drink coffee already, you should definitely start. However, when I Google reasons I should not drink coffee, I find another article from the same source, Healthline.com, written by Tiffany LaForge, a contributing writer and chef, and fact-checked by Natalie Olson, a registered dietitian and exercise physiologist. She has also done her research and writes about 10 reasons that you should not drink coffee because of the effects of the caffeine in it. This suggests it may be time to cut coffee out of the picture. So what do we do as critical thinkers? Both sides have articles which are reviewed by experts, and not just the ones from Healthline. Both sides present compelling reasons to drink or not to drink coffee, so which one is the right answer to our question? Is coffee good for us or not? Well, remember, when we are using critical thinking, we are questioning everything, including the questions we are asking to make sure that we are asking the right one. In this case, the answer is not clear because the question is too broad to get a concise answer. When we are asking questions, we need to be more specific. For this question, the problem that we are running into is that we are not clear on what is meant by good for us. We need to make sure that we are specific in what we are asking and what we want to know if we want to avoid ambiguity in the answer. We also need to be sure that our own personal perspective or bias does not interfere in asking clear questions. Bias typically gets a bad rap, but without it, every decision we make would be onerous. Our brains have helped us out by engaging our memories and looking for patterns in the world to help us make sense of what is going on around us, without having to spend too much time or brain power to do so, especially in our day-to-day routines. Having our own perspective alleviates a lot of extra thinking, freeing up brain power for serious work. Where we get into trouble is when we forget that other people have their own perspectives that are different from ours and just as right. Let's do a quick exercise on perspective. Look away from your screen and cover your left eye with one of your hands. And then in your workbook or on a piece of paper, write down one thing that you see. Do this again, but cover your right eye this time and look at the same object. Write down in your workbook or on your paper. How does the object look different when looking through the other eye? When we change which eye we use to see, we change our visual perspective. We may see the same objects and things around the room, but we are seeing them slightly differently when looking at them with one eye or the other. This is a shift in our perspective. Have you ever been to a meeting with a colleague and after the meeting you compare notes on what the key parts of the meeting were, and then wonder if you were in the same meeting? Each of us has our own perspective as to what was important. This is our personal bias at work, and that is a good thing. But again, what we have to remember is that we are seeing things through the lens of our bias. So we need to be open to other perspectives, which are just as valid as our own. Having a bias is natural and normal and is an important part of our decision-making process. Biases are how we apply our past experiences and learning to current situations. Making decisions without them would result in the simplest, most routine decisions taking up a large amount of time, keeping us from more important matters. However, if we are not aware of our biases, they can keep us from learning and create blind spots in our thinking. Let's take a look at how we create biases. The ladder of inference is a model developed by Chris Argyris in the 1970s, and it shows how we create beliefs or biases by learning from our experiences, and that our beliefs and biases drive our actions. Let's climb up this ladder and see how it works. I will talk about each rung of the ladder, and then we will follow an example through each step as we go along. We have some sort of experience. This is something that a video camera could capture. It's summer 2021. You are a project manager and attend a standing virtual meeting via Teams with other PMs so all of you can stay aligned on activities and priorities. Matt, the lead overseeing supply chain, is not on the call. Later in the day, he reaches out to the call's facilitator and asks for the minutes from the meeting so he knows what was discussed and if he has any actions or reports due. He also touched base with each of the leads that were waiting on materials and supplies for their projects. Here, we start to sort through the data of the experience in our minds and select what we think is important to remember from it, usually solely based on our perspective. Too often, we do not have all the facts or data of what is going on available to us when we are making decisions. Matt skipped the meeting. We assign meaning to the information we selected from our experiences based on our biases and beliefs. Supply chain has been a source of frustration for the organization over the past 18 months, and Matt has not been able to sort it out. With a meaning assigned to the data that was based on our biases, we can make assumptions. This means we may ignore all other perspectives and facts and arrive at conclusions on what is happening. Matt is taking advantage of working remotely, sleeping in, and not interested in the success of the organization. This is when we make a firm conclusion based on our assumptions, based on the meaning we assign to the data we selected using our bias as our lens on the experience we had. Keep in mind that we have still not acknowledged all of the facts and realities that we could have been considering from the very beginning. Matt is not reliable, and supply chain will continue to be a mess as long as he is running it. Working from the conclusions that we came to, based on our assumptions from the meaning we gave to the data we selected through the lens of our own bias of the experience we had, we adopt beliefs which then become a new lens or perspective that we will see the world through moving forward. These beliefs are going to drive future actions and judgments. Matt is just one more example of an incompetent supply chain manager, and that the system needs to be overhauled. Putting our beliefs into action with how we interact with the world, remember, though we are taking action based on our beliefs that are grounded in nothing more than our own assumptions and not all of the possible facts of the situation. I will avoid engaging with Matt and his team if possible unless I see someone in his group that seems competent. Then I will only deal with them. Otherwise, I will try to go straight to a handful of suppliers I know that are reliable. There is also another phenomena that happens when we go up this ladder. When we get to the top, we then put on the goggles of experience and beliefs, and it is through these lenses that we will select any and all data moving forward. Argyris called this the reflexive loop. Where the trouble can happen is when we go through an experience and as we are sorting the data, we automatically use our belief lens to select data and forget that we are looking through a lens. This is where confirmation bias comes from. In other words, we do not even see data or information that does not support what we already believe to be true. So in the case of Matt in our example, we did not consider that there is a worldwide pandemic disrupting supply chains on every continent, and ignored that he may have been engaging with a supplier in another time zone during the standing meeting, as well as the fact that he did get the minutes from the meeting and he did touch base with the PMs that were waiting on information from him. So how do we combat this confirmation bias? First, we have to take a step back and examine our own beliefs and biases as they relate to the issue we are working on. Then, we need to see how they are influencing our thinking and decision-making around the issue at hand. This often requires taking a hard look into the mirror and seeing our own biases and examining our own beliefs. Ask yourself, 1. What do I think about this? 2. Why do I think this, and what is it based on? 3. Can I find an example of when this is not true? 4. Is this belief serving me or holding me back? And 5. What is another way of seeing this? Here are 2 simple strategies for seeing other or new perspectives. First, go and talk to someone else who is familiar with the issue. Try to engage with someone that you trust to be honest with you, but who may not agree with you to get a different perspective. Second, if this is something that you are sorting out on your own, take a break from it, get up and move to a different location, and then re-engage with it. Or, if you are sitting down, get up and walk across the room and think it over while standing. The simple act of changing your physical location or position can change not just your visual perspective, but your mental perspective as well if you are open to it. Let's recap all we covered today in talking about critical thinking. Critical thinking is the ability to objectively analyze information, including subjective information, and make a reasoned judgment. It involves the evaluation of sources, such as data, facts, observable events, and experiences, as well as research findings. Critical thinking is actively engaging with new ideas and thoughts, and evaluating and questioning data, information, and sources. It is about asking the right questions to help ensure that we get what we are looking for in terms of specific and reliable answers. We talked about everyone having their own perspective or bias, and we discussed where those biases come from with the ladder of inference. Biases are not a bad thing and are used in our day-to-day decision-making processes to help us navigate our lives. Where we run into problems with problem-solving is when we forget that we are looking through our biased lenses and do not take a step back to look for other possible data and perspectives. Thank you for watching this video. We hope that you gleaned useful and helpful information. If you have any questions, please contact your civilian training advocate or contact HQ's BD17 at NAVFAC HQ Total Force Development at Navy.mil. Thank you for participating today. Be sure to follow the instructions on this page to submit your self-certification for this course. Or simply scan in the QR code on your screen to generate the email message for you. Be sure to include your Navy email address in the body of your email message if you are using a personal device. Again, thank you for your participation today.